Yasodanandana Prahladananda Ranjana Yasodanandana Prahladananda Ranjana Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Anacharya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopidana Balava Grivanadari Gopidana Balava Grivanadari Yasodanandana Prahladananda Ranjana Yasodanandana Prahladananda Ranjana Yamuna Tira Anacharya Yamuna Tira Anacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Brahmadakacharya Asidhara Sadushi Shiman His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Cooperative Haribol Glories to the Sound Devotees All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Namo Oma Gyana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Pradana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakan Vitam Scha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Siddha Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakapa Drubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 54, the marriage of Krishna and Rukmini, beginning with text 42. So, should we read the one with the purport or just, the Sanskrit? So anyhow, these verses don't have any purport, so I'll just read the translation. To Rukmini, Balaram said, "Your attitude is unfair, for like an ignorant person, you wish good to those who are inimical to all living beings, and who have done evil to your true well-wishers." Text 43. The Supreme Lord's Maya makes men forget their real selves, and thus taking the body for the self, they consider others to be friends, enemies, or neutral parties. Text 44. Eka eva parodhyatma sarvesham api dehinam taneva griyate mudar yata jyotir yata nava. Eka eva paro yatma sarvesham api dehinam taneva griyate mudar yata jyotir yata nava. Ladies, Eka, one, Eva, only, Para, the Supreme, He Indeed, Atma, soul, Sarvesham, among all, Api, and Dehinam, invited beings, Nana, many, Eva, as if, Kriyate, is perceived, Mudai, by those who are bewildered, Yata, as, Jyoti, a celestial body, Yata, as, Nabaha, the sky. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada's disciples. Those who are bewildered perceive the one Supreme Soul resides in all embodied beings as many, just as one may perceive the light in the sky, or the sky itself as many. Purport. The last line of this text, Yata Jyotir Yata Nava, introduces two analogies in which we perceive one thing to be many. Jyoti indicates the light of heavenly bodies, such as the sun or moon. Although there is only one moon, we may see the moon reflected in pools, rivers, lakes, and buckets of water. Then it would appear as if there were many moons, although there is only one. Similarly, we perceive a divine presence in every living being. Sky or air is in each pot, although the sky itself is one. Srimad Bhagavatam gives a similar analogy concerning fire and wood. Yata ye vahito vanir, darush veka swa yonishu, neneva bhati vishvatma, huteshu cha yata puman. The Lord as the Super Soul pervades all things, just as fire pervades wood, and so he appears to be of many varieties, though he is the absolute one without a second. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tenamane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyadyade Siddharne. In 1969, Srila Prabhupada came to one temple in ISKCON. It was in Buffalo, New York. And at that time, I was a student living in the temple, a student at the University of Buffalo living in the temple. And I had classes in the afternoon. So in the morning, I would go and sit with Srila Prabhupada, sometimes alone and sometimes with other devotees. And Srila Prabhupada would talk. So one time I was sitting there with Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was talking to me for some time. And my mind wandered off a little bit, because at that time I was practicing yoga. And I was trying to see the effulgence, the aura in every living entity. So I was trying to see Srila Prabhupada. And then Srila Prabhupada looked at me and said, "Our process is bhakti. It's not mystic yoga." So later on, on another occasion, I was asking Srila Prabhupada some questions. And I asked Srila Prabhupada, I said, if Krishna wants me to do something, and Krishna doesn't want me to do something, how will I know what he wants us to do? Because at that time I was studying one book about Paramatma and everyone's heart, etc. And Prabhupada looked at me and said, you won't know what to do. And then everyone started to laugh. And then he said, you'll do the wrong thing. And then Prabhupada gave me this look of compassion. So the question is, how do we find out what the right thing is to do? That in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada mentions that what is the Bhagavad Gita that he's presenting? that one lady came to him and asked him to recommend the Bhagavad Gita in English because there were so many of them. At that time, Prabhupada said there were around 700 different translations of the Bhagavad Gita in English alone. So Prabhupada said to this lady that, I'm sorry, I can't recommend any of them because none of them actually follow the original speaker and agree with what he says, the original speaker being Lord Krishna. And then Prabhupada mentions in the introduction that if we want to take a medicine, we have to take the medicine according to the directions on the label or according to the instructions of an authorized physician. So similarly, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said by the great acharyas, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, and even Sankaracharya, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And also in the Vedas it is said that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now Arjuna, hearing from Bhagavad Gita, hearing from Krishna, he says, Param Brahma, Param Dharma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavam, Purusham Shasatam Divyam, Adidevam Ajam Vibhum. My dear Krishna, I accept you as the Supreme Abode, the Supreme Purifier, etc., as the absolute person. So similarly, Srila Prabhupada says, if we want to derive any benefit from the Bhagavad Gita, at least on faith, we have to accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We don't have to blindly accept that Krishna is God, nor should we blindly reject that Krishna is God. At least we should accept theoretically that he might be God. Then we can actually derive from benefit from hearing Bhagavad Gita. So similarly, hearing Bhagavad Gita, as expressed here, we go through 3 different levels. One level is that we're not the body. Now Bhagavad Gita is called Buddha Yoga. At the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that one who studies the Bhagavad Gita, he worships me by his intelligence. So we're trying to utilize our intelligence to see things properly. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita in the 13th chapter, Krishna says, Kshetra, Kshetragaya Gyan, Kshetra, Kshetragaya Evam, Antara Gyana Chakshusha, Bhuta Prakriti Moksham Cha, Ye Vidur Yantate Param. So this word is used, Gyana Chakshush. Another part, Krishna says, Shastra Chakshus. Uttara Ukramantam Siddhim Vapi, Bhunjana Vav Gunanvita, Vimudo Nanapashanti, Pashanti Gyana Chakshusha. Again, Shastra Chakshus and Gyana Chakshus. That the foolish, they cannot understand how the living entity quits his body, nor can they understand what kind of body he's enjoying under the spell of the material modes of nature. But those whose eyes are trained with knowledge can see all this clearly. So we're trying to see things properly to begin with. Therefore we have Shravanam to see things, at least theoretically, as clearly as possible. So hearing is a process of, first of all, trying to remember what we've heard. Because if we can't remember what we heard, it's like, Prabhupada gave the example, an elephant. An elephant eats this much food, and then it passes this much stool. So it doesn't gain anything. Similarly, at the end of a class, if we walk away and someone says, how was the class? And we try to remember what was the book he read from. It means we have a little bit more practice in hearing. But if we hear and then we try to assimilate the knowledge, trying to assimilate the Analogies. For example, in this particular verse, it mentions about coming to the platform of seeing the super soul everywhere. So, there are so many instructions in Bhagavad Gita. Samam pashan hisaratra samam vishati ishvaram nihinasyatmanam tatoyati param gatim. That one who can see the super soul everywhere does not degrade himself and is not destroyed when the present material body is destroyed. He can actually see. Samam pashan hi sarvatra samavasitim ishvaram nihinastyatmanam tatoyati param gatim. The one who sees the super soul present in all bodies and equal everywhere does not degrade himself by his mind, and thus he approaches the supreme destination. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, for instance, Trinadapi sunichena tariva sahishnuna amarina maridena kirtini yakstadahari. So what does this have to do with the super soul? Well, first of all, without seeing the super soul present along with the soul in the destructible body, and knowing that neither ourselves nor anyone else will be destroyed, then we can't actually be humble. If we think we're this body or anyone else is their body, then we'll be in a competitive mood. Who is actually better? But if we see everything as a manifestation of the super soul, and he's directing all living entities within this temporary body, and no matter what body we have, it really makes no difference to the soul, because the soul and the super soul have nothing to do with any gross or subtle material body. It is just like someone may have a very nice dream and think he's doing very nicely, and someone else may have a nightmare and think he's in trouble. But they're both an illusion. A dream is just a dream. If you're having a dream that you become rich and famous and everyone's falling at your feet, and then someone shakes you because it's time to get up, and you get up and say, "What did you do? You spoiled my life." But that's not real life. It was a dream. Or if you're dreaming and a tiger comes and bites you, "Ah, my tiger, help!" and someone comes and kicks the tiger. But actually, that's not the solution. The solution is to wake up and then see there was never a tiger. You were never in trouble. It was just a dream. Similarly, we're dreaming with this body, and we're dreaming others of their bodies also, and therefore we're having a mutual, either happy or unhappy dream. But the aim of life is not to have a good dream as opposed to a not so pleasant dream. The aim of life is to wake up so we don't dream anymore. So we wake up into reality, which is extremely wonderful, full of bliss and full of consciousness, unlimited consciousness of happiness, love, and bliss forever. Can anyone mention anything better than that? A free ticket to Disneyland is better than that? What could be better than that? So therefore, if we see the super soul present everywhere, along with the soul within these destructible bodies, and don't judge people by their external bodies, but try to understand how everyone is getting the results of their desires by the mercy of the super soul, then one does not degrade oneself by the mind, and one can remain humble as a servant of Krishna, as a super soul, as an instrument. And then one could become Trinadapi Sunichena Torivasi. One could become tolerant. Tolerant of what? Prahlad Maharaj said that there's no enemy in this world except for the uncontrolled mind. We think when we're getting something pleasant in this world, I deserve it. And when we get something unpleasant, it's Krishna is asleep. He doesn't realize what's going on, happening to his pure devotee. But actually, it's all Krishna's mercy. It's all, as it said, tate nukampam susamikshamano bunjana evatmakritam vipakam. That we're simply receiving the results of our past deeds in order to teach us how to take shelter of Krishna. When we're suffering, we should know that there's no other way of relieving ourselves actually from suffering other than taking shelter of this super soul to direct us towards Krishna. Then, if we practice tolerance, then the result is that we could actually begin to sit back and see objectively, or from our own understanding, all the good qualities that are present. Instead of torturing ourselves with criticism, unproductive criticism, we can actually develop some love and appreciation for others by trying to see how they're related to Krishna and how Krishna is working through them to help all living entities go back to Krishna consciousness, to the spiritual world. Then we can actually try to see the good qualities in others and understand that if there's any good quality I have, it is simply by the mercy of my spiritual master, who's connected with his disciple succession. And therefore, simply by his mercy, I've learned how to desire properly, and by his mercy, Krishna is utilizing me as an instrument to give others Krishna consciousness. So in that way, we could try to see some verses in Bhagavad Gita, how they're related to what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying. Now here it mentions about the super soul. So who is the super soul? Where is the super soul? Just like there's sometimes some argument where we came from. Were we ever with Krishna? So according to Bhagavad Gita, it is impossible not to be with Krishna. Nothing exists outside of Krishna consciousness, outside of Krishna's influence. Everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy, and Krishna is present everywhere. So the super soul has always been with us. The super soul, or Krishna, he's always with us. So there's never a time, Krishna said, when I did not exist. With Krishna, that's something else. Now, how to go back to Krishna? Krishna says, Machita, Machkata, Prana, Bodhyantash, Parashparam, Katayantas, Shamam, Nityam, Tushanti, Charamanti Cha. We have to hear from Krishna's devotees. And the best devotee to hear from is the devotee who's actually situated in pure Krishna consciousness. And in our society, we recognize Srila Prabhupada as such a person. Now, we may not know what Prabhupada was experiencing, but all we know is that Prabhupada was the most addicted to Krishna. Both in his writings and his activities, he was simply dedicated completely to Krishna. So we come to the Hare Krishna movement in order to learn how to become addicted to Krishna also. If we want to become drunkards, it is very simple. Go to the bar and associate with drunkards, and they'll teach you very nicely how to become a drunkard. Similarly, if we want to become addicted to Krishna, we also have to become associated with someone like Srila Prabhupada, who is completely addicted to Krishna. Therefore, our movement is meant to teach the devotees within ISKCON that the goal, first of all, is Krishna. Acharyamam vijaniyam navamartita karichit namartya buddha suyeta sarva deva mayoguru. that one should respect the initiating spiritual master as a representative of Krishna, as a manifestation of all the demigods. No one should disrespect him, because the spiritual master comes in two different forms. According to the purport, that the spiritual master can be like the teacher who's gradually raising the student up to Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is meant for liberation. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Trinada Pisunichena Triva Sahishnuna Amadina Amadadena. So Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita that the process of liberation, the verse of Tesham Sadatam Yuktanam Vajantam Pritipur. Actually, let's go. Yesham Antakatam Papam Jananam Punya Karmanam Te Dvanva Maho Nirmuktva Vajante Mam Drida. That we become liberated, first of all, by controlling our senses and refraining from sinful activities and doing positive activities like mercy, austerity, cleanliness, truthfulness. Then we can act piously. We can accept devotional service. And then we can conquer our sinful reactions. What does conquering the sinful reactions mean? Do you take a sword and we say, all right, my sinful reactions, let's go to it. See who wins. Ah, my God. Oh. I conquered sinful reactions. Now, how can we conquer sinful reactions? Apurimana machala pratishtam samudram apa pravishanti advat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashantim atnoti nakama kami. That a person who's not disturbed, undisturbed by the incessant flow of desires. Anyone here have some desires coming through the mind sometimes? Well, I can say I do. Incessantly flowing through our minds. As I said in my last class, the main one is, she loves me not. She loves me not. And after some experience in the material world, we find out the conclusion was, she never really loved me. Only when I had some money there was some love there. So, conquer sinful reactions means we remain absorbed in whatever level of Krishna consciousness we have, and we see this desire, this hankering is not going to help me. This lamentation is a waste of time. I don't have to go through some movie within my mind when I'm chanting japa. Hare Krishna, only if I took that test again, I would have gotten 100. Hare Ram, Ram Ram. If I would have said this to her, everything would have been all right. Shnik, Ram, day. We don't have to go through all these movies all the time within our mind. They're a waste of time. We're wasting our time. Instead of doing that, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare. Be happy that we're chanting Hare Krishna. We have the opportunity to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His pleasure potency, His loving potency, Srimati Radharani. What could be better? What could be more auspicious? Why waste our time in thinking about something else? Why not happily chant Hare Krishna and enter into the mood of devotional service? So, if we see our first business is to do something positive and avoid the things that are not so good, to do devotional service, then our minds can be absorbed in Krishna and all these thoughts will not bother us. That's called conquering sinful reactions. Then we can actually accept devotional service. Anartha Nivritti. We can actually rise up to the platform of Nishta. And on the platform of Nishta, when we no longer want money and women and power, prestige, and liberation. Feel the presence of the loving exchanges of Krishna and his devotees, and the result is Ainandana Tanuja Kinkaram. We'll actually want to develop a desire to absorb our minds more and more in Krishna consciousness. So this is the same thing explained. In the beginning, we're learning from the spiritual master how to become liberated. And then when we have a spiritual master in disciple succession, then we can see that they're actually a representative of Lord Nityananda and a personal associate of Srimati Radharani after liberation. But then Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 1, about the spiritual masters, text number 47, Shiksha Guru Ke Ta Jani Krishna Swarup Antaryami Bhakta Shrestha Aduri Rup. That one should know the instructing spiritual master as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna manifests himself as the super soul and as the greatest devotee of the Lord. Therefore, we should understand every devotee is special. But how special they are, that depends upon what their level of consciousness is. Now, there are only two energies in the world. I mean, there's more than two energies, but Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Dvai imo purusho loke, shara chakshra eva cha, shara sarvani bhutani, kutasta shara uchate. That there are only two types of activities, shara and akshara. Either we're acting under the spiritual energy or we're acting under the material energy. Now, not everyone who's acting under the spiritual energy or not everyone acting under the material energy is equally absorbed in the modes of material nature. There's goodness, there's passion, ignorance. So someone acting in ignorance, we may say, oh, this is very bad. He killed this person, he stole this money, he's a very bad person. And someone acting in passion, oh, he's making a lot of money, he's great, he's fantastic, he's worshipable. Oh, Sahib, I offer my respects. And someone acting in goodness, oh, he's divine. He loves nature. He takes care of the penguins and the seals. He's my hero. Ahajano yena kata sapanta. Everyone has some hero, even in the material world. Wet stool and dry stool, according to Srila Prabhupada. In India, as you might know, sometimes they pass stool on the fields. And there's a big debate going on, along with where the jiva came from and whether ladies should give initiation or not. There's also a debate going on whether wet stool is better than dry stool. Because especially in India, the sun heats the stool, dries it out, but the other side is still wet. So they're trying to decide which is better, the side that's baked or the side that's still moist. But after all, the subject matter is still the same. It's stool. Wet stool or dry stool. So anyone acting either in goodness, passion, or ignorance, they're acting in the material energy. But anyone sadatam kirtayantam mam yatantas chadradavrataha namantas chaschamam bhaktya nityuto pasate. Anyone who's chanting the holy name, anyone who's endeavoring with determination to serve Krishna, anyone who understands his position of humility, that he's under the divine energy. Now he may have some fault, we may perceive some fault, real or imaginary, but actually it's insignificant according to Krishna. The fact that they're acting under the spiritual energy is what's significant. If someone is taking a shower, they may be dirty, but you don't go to the shower and say, hey, look at him, he's dirty, he's dirty. Because he's taking the remney, he's taking the shower, and in the course of time, he'll become clean. So the other side is one acting under the spiritual energy, and therefore it says, Jani Krishna Swarup Antaryami Bhakta Shrestha E Duri Rup. That one should know the instructing spiritual master as a bona fide representative of Krishna. That Krishna manifests himself as the super soul and as the greatest devotee. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, Krishna Das Kaviraj states that the instructing spiritual master is a bona fide representative of Krishna. So we're all the devotees in the society, they're all bona fide representatives of Krishna as much as they've understood Srila Prabhupada's instructions and following them. As I mentioned before, that in November 1977, when Srila Prabhupada was almost ready to leave this world, at least physically, leave his physical body or spiritual body, then two prominent politicians came to speak to him. So Srila Prabhupada said, because they wanted to speak to Prabhupada alone, Prabhupada said, it's all right, they can speak to me alone. And as I mentioned, Bhakti Shri Maharaj, he left the tape recorder on, and so they heard what the conversation was. And later they asked Srila Prabhupada, what do these two gentlemen want? And they asked Prabhupada, who will be the next leader of your movement? And Prabhupada said, I'm not choosing anyone as a leader. All my disciples, they'll be a leader, will be the next leader, as much as they've understood and follow. So you're all the next leaders. We're all the next leaders, as much as we've understood Prabhupada's instructions and we're following them. That's the leader. That's the person that has vision. That's Jnana Chakshus. That's Shastra Chakshus. And we may have, there are different leaders with different titles and different responsibilities, but they're all meant to assist, helping us gain Shastra Chakshus, Jnana Chakshus. That's the whole aim of this management system, the system of authority that Prabhupada has set up, simply to help us learn submission to the right philosophy, to the right understanding, to know what to do and what not to do, and how to do it perfectly. So Prabhupada writes that Shri Krishna teaches as the instructing spiritual master from within and without. So, believe it or not, when we're acting in Krishna consciousness, we're acting as a bona fide representative of Krishna, as the super soul, as Krishna. Krishna has manifested the devotees in this movement as Nimitra Matram Bhavasavasachin. Or Srila Prabhupada told Brahmananda Prabhu one time, he said, the only difference between you and me is that I can't fall down, but you can. So it is not that I'm acting as a bona fide representative of Krishna right now, and therefore 5 minutes later I'm perfectly acting as a bona fide representative of Krishna. At any moment, when we're not on the platform of pure Krishna consciousness, we may fall down like Bharat Maharaj. It doesn't take much. Yoga's chalati manasa. Maya is expert. She has practiced on unlimited living entities since time immemorial. She knows if you're good or bad. She knows exactly what we're doing. Therefore, we have to be good for Krishna's sake. But still, if we're acting in Krishna consciousness, then the result is, although, as Prabhupada will explain in this purport, there are two types of Shiksha Gurus. One who's the liberated soul, and he sees everything perfectly in Krishna consciousness. He sees everyone acting as Krishna's servant. either favorably or unfavorably. And the topmost devotee, for his consciousness, everyone is acting favorably because everyone is fulfilling the purpose of Krishna. The person who blesses us is fulfilling Krishna's purpose, and the person who smacks us is trying to wake us up also to Krishna's purpose, or at least testing us. And if we pass the test, then it says in the Bhagavad Gita that the spiritual master will automatically bless us with genuine spiritual understanding. So everything is a test, good or bad. So the perfect spiritual master, the perfect instructing guru who sees everything perfectly in Krishna consciousness, and Prabhupada says he's absorbed in meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that other verse that I gave, Yeshamantikatam Papam, we brought up to the platform of accepting devotional service. But beyond that is feeling Krishna's presence, understanding Krishna truth, experiencing Krishna. The Krishna consciousness movement is not just for theoretical knowledge, it's for actually experience of Krishna, to experience love, to experience a consciousness of how everyone and everything is related to Krishna, and love everyone and everything in relationship to Krishna. But the highest devotee, the perfect devotee, is absorbed in trance in loving Krishna, has become addicted to Krishna, who can't live without a moment without Krishna, is absorbed in meditation in Krishna. So this is the devotee who can actually give us perfect direction. Others, Prabhupada says, by dint of their own personal experience, they can also help us. Because if we're lower, then the higher can bring us up to at least their platform. They can bring us up by their relevant instructions, by their own experience in Krishna consciousness. But then Prabhupada writes that the Acharya, in the true sense of the term, who's authorized to deliver, who's actually with us? Thus the instructions of the science of devotion are differentiated in terms of the objective and subjective ways of understanding. The Acharya, in the true sense of the term, who's authorized to deliver Krishna, enriches his disciples with full spiritual knowledge and thus awakens them to the activities of devotional service. Activities of devotional service are external, but they're also internal. The feelings of love, the feelings of appreciation, the understanding perfectly what to do and what not to do, because one is simply an instrument for the perfect person, Krishna. So such a personality is Srila Prabhupada. At least in our society, anyone who joins the society and sincerely wants to participate in the society's activities must accept, at least theoretically, that Prabhupada is a perfect person. His instructions are perfect. Because of our imperfections, we will not be able to understand them perfectly, but we have to go through the process of hearing them, trying to remember them, trying to assimilate what Prabhupada actually said, and then work according to those instructions with conviction. In other words, it doesn't matter who we're hearing from. Unless we read Prabhupada's books, unless we remember what Prabhupada says, unless we assimilate what Prabhupada says, unless we have the experience of acting with conviction on the basis of what Prabhupada said, so that Krishna reveals himself. He gives us dadami buddha yogam tam, tesham sadatam yuktanam, bhajantam priti purvakam, dadami buddha yogam tam, yena mamupuyanti te. Unless we see the example in others, as their Prabhupada is reflecting within others his mercy and therefore we see Prabhupada's mercy reflected in the hearts and the activities of others, then we become inspired by others because of Prabhupada's, ultimately because Prabhupada has inspired them and empowered them to inspire us. Because of their steady devotional service and their enthusiastic devotional service done with care and attention. Then when we see ourselves as dasa, dasa, anudasa, as we see ultimately how everyone in some way or another within the society who's sincerely serving the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu under Prabhupada's guidance is connected with our disciple succession, is connected with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's mercy is the sum total of the entire disciple succession, the sum total of the 6 Goswamis' instructions, the sum total of the mercy of the Panchatattva, the sum total of Krishna's pastimes and Leela. That is all coming through Srila Prabhupada and reflected to different degrees in those who are following him. Then we can actually see Prabhupada and Krishna everywhere as they're manifested in the hearts and minds and the activities of the devotees within society, and appreciate how they're actually sincere servants of our disciple succession. They may not be perfect. Just like Srila Prabhupada said in Vrindavan here in 1972, giving his Bhagavatam class, Nectar Devotion class, he mentioned that actually when the spiritual master, he gives instructions to his followers or disciples, he knows actually those instructions are coming by the mercy of the Super Soul. Those instructions are actually the instructions of his spiritual master coming to him through the mercy of the Super Soul. And when he instructs his followers or instructs his disciples, and they follow those instructions, then he actually learns from his disciples how to become a better servant of his spiritual master, a better servant of the Super Soul. Therefore, he sees his disciples, he sees his followers as a kind of guru for himself. He doesn't think himself independent at any moment from his spiritual master or from Krishna. He sees himself as simply an instrument and servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. In that way, although perhaps none of us, or many of us, whatever we may think, are perfectly absorbed in meditation upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore Prabhupada writes here that the Acharya, in the true sense of the term, was authorized to deliver Krishna, enriches his disciples with full spiritual knowledge, and thus awakens them to the activities of devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada is doing that. He's doing that to different degrees through all of us. And we should appreciate that. But especially we have to appreciate Srila Prabhupada, because he stands as an individual personality, as a representative of our disciple succession, and his books, his instructions, his deity form. He's present in his deity. And he's also present in the hearts of all his followers. So we have to appreciate Prabhupada and try to understand his instructions, and whatever we hear from others, we should have enough knowledge to understand how this is actually Prabhupada's instructions. And when they're not Prabhupada's instructions, we have to humbly investigate, especially if it's from a superior. Humbly investigate, not blindly accept, not blindly reject, but humbly investigate through Prabhupada's instructions, his example, those who are actually sincerely following him. And when everything becomes clear, then we can act with conviction and determination and get Krishna's mercy. It is not just by theoretical understanding, it's by direct action in Krishna consciousness with conviction that Krishna dadami buddhi yogam tam, that he enlightens us so that we develop the skill of how to especially engage in loving relationships with the devotees. the 6 loving relationships. And as we develop that skill, then we develop the qualities and the character of a pure devotee. Then we can actually enter into Krishna's pastimes. Then Prabhupada, by his mercy, by the mercy of the disciple succession, will give us all his blessings. And therefore, our movement is quite simple. Or as Prabhupada said to me, as I've mentioned many times, that the more, Prabhupada wrote to me one time, he said, the more you work seriously to bring Krishna's other children back to the spiritual kingdom, then the more he'll bestow all his blessings upon you. That Krishna is never ungrateful for our efforts to serve him, rest assured. So we should be convinced by knowledge and by experience that not only we're instruments of Krishna, but all of us, we're all instruments of Krishna, working together. As Prabhupada once wrote to me, he said, we're all servants of Krishna. Well, first of all, he said, thank you very much for this contribution of love. I sent him some Lakshmi for his books fund. He said, we're all servants of Krishna working under consecutive disciple succession. So please, if there's any credit to me that goes to me, it doesn't go to me, it goes to my spiritual master. So please study all the books I have written, and sometime afterwards, you'll have to help carry on the disciple succession. So that's for all of us. It's not for me or one or two of us. It's for all of us. We all have that responsibility. And the more we understand that, the more we become united in Prabhupada's mission and the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the mission of our acharyas, and work for that mission cooperatively, seeing all of us as instruments of Krishna to different degrees, and discerning things on the basis of Prabhupada's instructions and example, what to do and what not to do, then this movement will become united, and then we'll be able to effectively liberate this world and make a big difference in this, as Prabhupada said, this whole civilization, which is meant to keep people in darkness, will soon come to an end. Then he mentioned about a war. He said that war is coming very, very soon. So this civilization is meant to keep people in darkness, and this movement is meant to uplift people to the highest level of Krishna, love for Krishna, and love for everyone and everything in relation to Krishna. So we should cooperate and work together for that mission. There is no one has their own kingdom in this society. There's only one kingdom, the kingdom of God. That Krishna has advented himself in this movement, and now we have to reveal Krishna to the world, and then our lives and everyone else's life will become perfect. Thank you. Hare Krishna. I think we have time for one question. Yeah, Panchagoda room. Panchagoda.
Whenever a great acharya leaves, there's sometimes some confusion as to direction we should all go. And some may feel a little bit, how you say that ISKCON, ISKCON's one thing. I believe in Prabhupada, but I don't really believe in, the decisions that ISKCON's making or whatever. So how does one protect himself feeling that maybe they were shortchanged or, not being appreciated or involved in the society after the acharya leaves? How do we keep the proper mentality that this is ISKCON is Prabhupada? How do we bring that to?
Well, when Srila Prabhupada is asked, what will happen after you leave, after you die? Prabhupada said, I'll never die. I'll live forever in my books, and my followers will take advantage of them. So Prabhupada has never died. It's just that we're dead. Therefore, a dead person can't see someone who's alive. Prabhupada is alive in his books. He's alive in the hearts of his sincere followers. He's alive in his deity. He's alive in this whole mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The whole disciple succession, all our acharyas are alive with him. The 6 Goswamis are alive with him. The Panchatattva are alive with him. And if we take shelter of Prabhupada and his instructions and those who are with him, then we'll also become alive. Yes.
Hare Krishna. So when Prabhupada left his body, on the second day before he left, he wanted medicine. And so he asked his servant, can you give me some medicine? The disciple gave him medicine, and Prabhupada asked, did you close the bottle? And the devotee said, I forgot, Srila Prabhupada. Then Prabhupada said, that is your disease, all of you. You know how to open bottles, you don't know how to close them. You start so many new things, and you don't see the consequences. So this is something we are experiencing very much. And many people say, well, I have my own Prabhupada. I have my own vision of Prabhupada. People have been opening bottles since a good while. And so even, I just read this book a little bit of Maharaj, Jayaveda Maharaj, Kirtan Standard. It has become so far away from what Prabhupada told us. So if we want to have unity, we can have only unity in Prabhupada and in his instructions, not in concoctions. Hare Krishna.
Yes. When Prabhupada gave an instruction, it wasn't just his instruction. It was the entire disciple succession's instruction. It was the six Goswamis' instruction. It was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions with the Panchatattva. And it was Krishna's instructions along with the whole spiritual world. So we don't, in the background, if we're not conscious, this is what Prabhupada wanted, then we're lost. Mat Shita Sarvadorgani, Mat Prasada Turishasi, Atachatvam Ahankaram, Nashoshasi, Nivangshasi. If you become conscious of me, you'll pass over all the obstacles of conditional life by my grace. If, however, you do not follow my instructions and do not hear me, then you'll be lost. So unless we're clear, this is what Prabhupada wanted us to do, this is what Prabhupada did, and we're doing it to please him, then we're simply cut off, asara. We may come back again immediately, but at least for that time we're cut off from the mercy of the disciple succession. And therefore we're not doing ourselves a favor or anyone else. I think we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam, Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.